Good morning and welcome everyone. This lodge meets at 11 a.m. every Sunday for a discussion of a particular topic presented by a student, and on the first and third Sundays we're studying the ocean by Mr. Judge. The present lodge we're at is located at 4865 A Cordell Avenue, Suite 230 in Bethesda. You can find us on the web. We're at ultwashdc.org, and our email is ultwashdc.org as well. The United Lodge of Theosophists have a declaration to guide their effort for the Theosophical movement that was given a tremendous impetus in the 19th century when HPB and her colleague Mr. Judge brought the new message clothed in the English language for the Western world. The policy is to be devoted to the cause of Theosophy without professing any attachment to any organization. The work it has at hand is very lofty, very encompassing, and it really does not leave any time or inclination to get involved in side issues. The sole bond among its members is a similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching. To that end, each student decides how they're going to participate, how they're going to contribute to it in money, time, and effort. It is run purely by charity. Today's reading comes from The Voice of the Silence. Desire nothing, chafe not at karma, nor at nature's changeless laws, but struggle only with the personal, the transitory, the evanescent, and the perishable. Help nature and work on with her, and nature will regard thee as one of her creators and make obeisance. And she will open wide before thee the portals of her secret chambers. Lay bare before thy gaze the treasures hidden in the very depths of her pure virgin bosom. Unsullied by the hand of matter, she shows her treasures only to the eye of spirit, the eye which never closes, the eye for which there is no veil in all her kingdoms. Then will she show thee the means and way, the first gate and the second, the third up to the very seventh, and then the goal, beyond which lie, bathed in the sunlight of the spirit, glories untold, unseen by any save the eye of soul. And today's talk is the law, karma.
Thank you, friends. The law of karma. It's a very fundamental law based on the premise and the fact in nature that nature exists for no other purpose than the soul's experience. Nature reacts to the degree that our thoughts and actions are in harmony with her laws. Mankind's thoughts and actions have brought us to where we are today. These three sentences summarize the law of karma. All of this is largely in our court. It is in our court. It shows time and again throughout the secret doctrine, throughout the other publications that ISIS unveiled, and the other writings of HPB and William Q. Judge, that we are masters of our ship. We create our own destiny. This next few minutes will provide some of the details supporting the three sentences that were just read. Last week, for example, we heard about the third eye. The third eye was associated with our spiritual powers, or buddhi, or intuition. Science knows very little, if anything, about the third eye. They've identified it. They show it here. This picture came off the internet. Right here, the pituitary gland is what science calls it. It's just now an organ that there's some evidence that was something used to be. It used to be an eye that you could actually see in the head. But now it is, I'll come up with the word in a minute. It was active in the natural process of our descent out of the ethereal world of spirit, which if we look at just this one set of cycles, which involves eons of time, we were in spirit, in ethereal bodies up here. We descended into matter. We've gone down to the bottom, as generally as humanity, down to the bottom, which is the grossest of matter, and now we're working our way back up into the spiritual realm. So, as Atlanteans, down in probably the bottom of the end of the cycle here, we misused our spiritual powers for selfish personal gain. The third eye withdrew, became petrified. That was the word I was looking for. And its remnant is called the pituitary gland. We are now ascending back out of matter into the spiritual world, that this shows us. And once we get further into this world, in fact, we're into that process right now, we must regain our spiritual wisdom through our own self-induced and self-devised methods in order to function in the future cycles. We really can't do it now, but at least there are those among us who have virtually no spiritual awareness at all, and they seem to be able to function, but they are going to be called out. Only those who have some degree of spiritual wisdom, in fact, as you go up, you have to have increasing spiritual wisdom in order to be able to function. So it is imperative that we, as the forerunners of the race, which Theosophists are exposed to the material which allows them to be forerunners of the race, but they have to themselves adjust themselves to do that. So the secret doctrine tells us that the third eye is indissolubly connected with karma. We just discussed our Atlantean role. Associated comments caution sincere theosophists who have gained wisdom by their contact with the theosophical movement. They often fancy too soon that they are something apart from the mass in their wisdom. In other words, they have developed certain intellectual, psychic capacities, but their spiritual discernment is still lacking, and they don't. Some of them don't seem to recognize that, and they go out and they go out with that attitude. So we have to keep working at it. We have to keep humble, if you will, because we are one of the masses, and it is up to us to try to improve ourselves, and in so doing, we do help and teach and improve others around us. It's the first step in universal brotherhood, the literature tells us, is a will to reform oneself in devotion to the best interest of others. In other words, we must become enlightened and unselfish. The spiritual wisdom of that third eye must be yoked together with the psychic and intellectual understanding we develop in our trip through matter. For without the spiritual wisdom, we are like blind Samsons who can as well easily tear down as build up. How humanity rises through cycles is very important. It may be through much self-inflicted strife or through a more natural process of effort and trial and learning to cooperate with the laws of life. Pages 643 and 644 of The Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, finds HBV noting that karma nemesis guards the good and watches over them in this, as in future lives, and that it punishes the evildoer even to his seventh rebirth, so long as there remains an effect of his having thrown into perturbation even the smallest atom in the infinite world of harmony. The only decree of karma is absolute harmony in the world of matter as it is in the world of spirit. You write that word down. Okay. So that's what karma is all about. So, it is not karma that rewards or punishes, but it is we who reward or punish ourselves according to whether we work with, through, and along with nature, abiding by the laws on which the harmony depends, or break them. There is not an accident in our lives, not a misshapen day or misfortune that could not be traced back to our own doings in this or another life. If one breaks the laws of harmony or the laws of life, one must be prepared to fall into the chaos one has oneself produced. The suppression of one single bad cause will suppress a variety of bad effects. So there are very reassuring aspects of karma that we need to pay attention to, and that's one. Knowledge of karma gives the conviction that man is himself his own savior and his own destroyer. In the encouraging instances of human kindness we hear about and witness on the material plane are examples of individuals perhaps being in sync with the natural process of effort in response to trials faced by mankind to the degree that the motive for the instances is not tainted by the expectation of personal gain in sheep's clothing. In other words, that's why this student used the word perhaps a little while ago, that it's really the motive that counts, and that's what carries the day. And you and I can generally, unless we're perfected beings, cannot judge the motive of another. Sometimes we individuals have enough trouble identifying our own motive in things, because in so many cases, probably in a lot of the cases, it's mixed. And Mr. Judge tells us that a sure sign of motive gone awry, if you will, is that there is the slightest degree of selfishness in an action. So the natural process of effort in response to trials faced by mankind is to the degree that the motive for the instances is not tainted by the expectation of personal gain. On the other hand, selfish thinking and action results in much self-inflicted strife. Mr. Judge has a list of aphorisms. It's only about 2 pages long, a few 31 bullets. The 30th of the bullets says, karma operates to produce cataclysms of nature brought on by the disturbance created through the dynamic power of human thought. The selfish materialist may be the first to deny any association between their thinking and action and ignorance of our spiritual reason for being. Are signs of global warming, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, salts, fires, and floods not nature's way of warning us about man's pollution of our environment and greed that causes world economic crises? Is nature telling us through these actions that we must try harder to think and act in ways that benefit all and harm none, so the age of Kali Yuga, which is the age we're in now, it's the dark age, will give way to the golden age that has already dawned. These ages intertwine with each other. So the golden age is what we have to look forward to if we make it such. We can speed up that age or delay it based on our own actions and our own will. As we just heard by the first speaker, who read the voice about the importance of working with nature, this passage from the voice is obviously why HPB called karma the ultimate law. It's the ultimate law of the universe, the source, origin, and fount of all other laws, which exist throughout nature. Karma is the unerring law the karma, which is just effects to cause on the physical, mental, and spiritual planes, all three that we really exist in. There's no cause that remains without its due effect, from the greatest cosmic disturbance down to the movement of your hand. Karma is that unseen, unknown law which adjusts wisely, intelligently, and equitably each effect to its cause. It traces the effect back to the producer. HPB said, we do not know what karma is exactly in its essence, but we do know how it works, and we can define and describe its mode of action with accuracy. Karmic cycles, that karma that we create in this life predestines conditions for future births of all, under the law of evolution, which is now carrying us along the ascending arc of our cycle. There we go. These cycles, these wheels within wheels, do not affect all mankind at one and the same time, and the system of cycles cannot be comprehended if spiritual action preordained by karmic law is separated from their physical course. Guess what we do today? We probably do exactly that. So the grand cycle runs through the inner cycles of man's progressive evolution from the ethereal down to the purely physical, down to the redemption of man's coat of skin, which is we're somewhere about right here, so we won't have a coat of skin forever, and matter. We won't be in matter directly forever, after which it continues running its course downward and then upward again. Well, I was on the downward side, and then upward. We don't have to worry about our coat of skin when we get here and all the challenges we have these days if we learn to live right. So it is not karma that rewards or punishes, but it is we who reward or punish ourselves according to whether we work with or break the laws of nature. Karma does not act in this, that, or any particular way. but it always acts so as to restore harmony and preserve the balance of equilibrium of the universe. The easy example that this student can think of, and it's in the literature, throw a rock into the pond. If it's a little rock, it makes a little ripple. If it's a big rock, it makes a big ripple. But the point is that the ripple keeps going. It'll go to the shore, and it comes right back where it started from. If I'm the one that created that situation, it comes back to me, and it keeps going back and forth, and the pond gets getting smoother and smoother on the surface until it's back to a very smooth existence. So that's what karma, that's how it does. So the law of karma and its twin doctrine, reincarnation, is the only doctrine that can explain the mysterious problem of good and evil and reconcile man to the terrible and apparent injustice of life. He who unveils through study and meditation karma's intricate paths and throws light on those dark ways is working for the good of his fellow man. We believe, and this is HPB's word, we believe the unknown universal deity is represented by karma, a power which leaves every cause to work out its inevitable effects. And we turn to Matthew chapter 2, verse 7, we find Jesus saying, "With what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again." A person who believing in karma, that was a quote, a person who believing in karma refuses to forgive every injury and render good for evil is a criminal and only hurts himself. Every atom is subject to the general law governing the whole body in which it belongs. The aggregate of individual karma becomes that of the community and the nation. We could have national karma. Known as national karma, and then to the world karma. No person can rise above his individual failings without lifting the whole body of which he is an integral part. That is why we're told that we're here to learn to improve ourselves through our own efforts. In so doing, we uplift everything around us. No one can sin nor suffer the effects of sin alone, so karma is distributive. Because we are interdependent. There is no such thing as a concept of separateness. Scratch that out. No such thing as that. We keep thinking about it. You know, we're separate from the other person, but that's not the case. We invented that, man invented that term, and man is having complexities because of that term. When every individual has contributed to the general good what he can of money, labor, and of ennobling thought, then and only then will the balance of national karma be struck. It is the development of humanity that the Theosophist has always in view, and he knows that any failure on his part to respond to the highest within him retards not only himself, but of all. In the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna warns against those actions and ceremonies which will lead to a coveted sojourn in heaven. In the notes, Mr. Judge said, "Doubtless there are many students who, believing in the possibility of reaching heaven, say that they are willing to take the risk of what may happen after the enjoyment of such a long period is ended. But those risks would not be taken were they well understood. The risks are numerous and great." When one has lived out life and gone to Devachan, the vast root of one's being stands waiting in the one life, waiting patiently for one to return and exhaust some more karma. That is, in any one life, the ordinary person only takes up and exhausts what karma his bodily apparatus permits. Part of the power of karma, Mr. Judge said, is in the mysterious power of meditation, which exhibits itself according to the particular corporal body one has assumed. So one may, in this life, perform special ceremonies and conform to texts and doctrine, attaining thereby the reward of heaven, and still have left over a quantity of that mysterious power of meditation unexpended. And what its complexion is, he does not know. Its risk, therefore, is that it may be very bad, and when he does return from heaven, his next body may furnish the needed apparatus to bring up to the front of this mass of unexpended karma, and his next compensation might be a sojourn in hell. So our circumstances are the direct results of our own deeds and thoughts in lives that are past and in the current life too. Every selfish action sends us backward. Every noble thought and unselfish deed are stepping stones to the higher and more glorious planes of being. Thus, every ego is its own savior. It can return to the original state of homogeneity only through the addition of the fruitage of karma, which alone is able to create an absolute conscious deity, remove but 1 degree from the absolute all. Probably most of us, if we go and look in the mirror and see the body that carries us around right now, that we're encased in now, have difficulty seeing back a deity. But that's what we are in potential, each and every one of us. That's what this says. Just a few of the aphorisms of 31 that are they're all worth reading carefully, and if anyone would like a copy, you could get a paper copy or an electronic copy just by shooting an email to www.washult.org. So it's one says, the first one says, there is no karma unless there is a being to make it or feel its effects. Number 2 says, karma is the adjustment of effects flowing from causes, during which the being upon whom and through whom that adjustment is effected experiences pain or pleasure. Number 3, I'm not going to read them all. Karma is an undeviating and unerring tendency in the universe to restore equilibrium, and it operates incessantly. Jumping down to number 5, karma operates on all things and beings from the minutest conceivable atom to Brahma. And that's part of it, what number 5 says. Number 6, part of it, what it says is karma is not subject to time, and it details what it means by that. Number 8, the karma of this earth is the combination of the acts and thoughts of all beings, and man being the key one, because we are the ones whose minds are lighted up and should know better. Beings below man operate on the basis of instinct. Karmic causes, number 12, karmic causes already set up in motion must be allowed to sweep on until exhausted, but this permits no man to refuse to help his fellows and every sentient being. Skipping on down, they're all very important, but skipping on down to 21, karma is both merciful and just. and 27. Paraphrase. Measures taken by an ego may alter the sway of karmic tendency and shorten its influence in accordance with the strength or weakness of the efforts expended in carrying out the measures adopted. Number 28, paraphrased. No man but a sage or true seer can judge another's karma. Birth into poverty or heavy trial may not be for punishment, but for the discipline of the ego and result in strength, fortitude, and sympathy. And number 30, karma operates to produce cataclysms of nature brought on by the disturbance created through the dynamic power of human thought. Human thought is a key throughout all of this process. Thinking starts the action, etc. So we'll close with this. Hopefully we've gotten now a better idea what karma is and have things that you might want to add to the discussion so far. So with that, could you please turn on the audience mic there? I believe I didn't turn it on. Yeah, if anybody would like to add comments or have questions, we can all explore together. And we have a comment or question in the back. Would you please grab the mic?
Yeah. I was wondering if you could explain what you mean by when
Pull
you
the
said
mic closer to you.
when you said that karma explains good and evil. What did you mean by that?
Karma explains good and evil?
Yes, I thought that's what you said earlier.
Uh,
To understand, yeah, something like that.
yeah, I'm not quite sure that those are the exact words I use, but anyway, karma is the...
I think it had to, the thought was that evil is explained, or that karma, yeah, that's all I can think of, is karma.
Karma is a good and evil. Well, I mean, what we're saying here is that karma can be good or it could be bad. Is that kind of what we're after here? And if you will, good would be the pleasure, pain could be the bad. And if we continue on down this bad, whatever it is, karma, we could wind up as black magicians, as some of the writings saying and so forth. We could wind up being evil ourselves and dragged down. You know, karma can help pull up, depending on us, we can pull up ourselves and all of humanity to the good side, or drag ourselves down and help drag down the rest of us, you know, as we come down in the matter, if you will. This is the way this characterizes here. Could you pass the mic up to the student up front, please?
I believe I heard you say that the intent was the one that carries the highest cost. So if our intention then is to help and not be selfish, in other words, if we're altruistic and our concern is for the benefit of all, not maybe at this stage of our development, the whole world, but perhaps our own family, our own community, and with all those that we come into contact, then what you express as uplifting would occur. But if we are selfish and personal, and we're after obtaining things for ourselves, that would be the other side of the coin, so to speak. And it would drag everything to materiality, and whatever else we are doing is causing disharmony in our environment, because the harmony comes from the core of the universe itself. Justice and harmony go together because karma is under strict justice. So whatever we create, its effect is going to come back to us, but it also affects everybody that we are in association with.
Absolutely. And you summarize a lot in a few words there. Typically, we are focused on ourselves and then our families and then our communities and our nation and the world. In understanding this, and all through the process, it is our motive. And we cannot go about forever doing things out of ignorance and say, well, my motive was good, things turned out bad. We have to learn to do it right. That's why I said we have to, I think the words were enlightened unselfishness is a word used. We have to develop our intellectual powers, we have to develop our psychic powers, but we have to also remember that that our spiritual powers, which is really what we're trying to get at, to develop, have to be kept in the forefront. Because once we get to that stage, all the psychic and intellectual stuff falls into place. It cuts through like a sword, cuts through like lightning. So that's why sometimes we ponder on things a lot and things like that. And then all of a sudden we wake up in the morning with the answer. Well, when we are sleeping, our minds, lower minds and so forth, may be inactive, but we're at the banquet of the gods, as often said. And we are being provided information, knowledge, that if we know how to put it together, and in the morning, the answer is there. So, yeah, we get help, and we have to get help. And when the student is ready, the master will appear. And this program is specifically designed, I can't speak for all groups and how they do it, but ULT program is designed to lead us to the point, we have to lead ourselves, but provide the help needed to get us, if we choose to accept that help through the literature, to the point where we are able to say, I'm ready, the master has appeared. It's the master's program, the bottom line is the way HPB presented it. She was a messenger of the masters. And you had a question?
I had a further comment on something that was already mentioned about intent. Because to me that was a very important point of karma, that it acts on intent. And I wanted to take it even more sort of deeper, that sometimes intent can be abundance for all. But the person who is experiencing intent of abundance for all is actually experiencing that intent because of his own inner feeling of scarcity. And scarcity. So the karma will react not at his intention of abundance, but on his fear of scarcity. So it is so important to actually have that really inner shift in whatever the vibration of our own state or our inner state. Not the intent we're projecting into the reality, but the intent of our inner state, how we perceive reality and where we are.
Could you clarify that a little bit more?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's good. Sounds good.
Let's say there are lots of civil society groups who are saying that we need to redistribute wealth. But they're not feeling wealthy themselves. They're feeling scarcity. They're feeling that something is taken from them, and the world is a world of scarcity. So the karma will be more scarcity, not more wealth.
More scarcity, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And
Exactly.
in many different aspects of that somebody is saying, I wish greater understanding between nations, but in reality they're just so bogged down by Middle East, and that Middle East is so evil that I wish that better understanding, but they're really, once you have it, you have more of it and create more of it, and karma acts on that more with more. So this is so important to not only shift your intent for others, but your inner state where you are. And that's so hard.
Absolutely.
Your inner
Absolutely.
state should reflect
Yes.
what your mental capacity is showing.
Yeah.
What you're
And that is so hard to catch yourself where
is
you
hard.
actually are.
It is hard, and we're bombarded with all this, and you raise a lot of points in a few words yourself, because I heard about the scarcity, and what do you hear from the economist? The scarcity of resources. The financial people, oh, there's scarcity of money, there's scarcity of that. You know, you get into the theosophical teaching, and we see this all around us, that there's an abundance of everything around us. We just have to learn how to live with that that abundance. We have the possibility of, we have many possibilities we haven't even thought of yet, and we have thought of a lot of things that we haven't really explored. The Secret Doctrine, published in the late 1800s, I mean, it was just full of ideas, absolutely full of ideas. Over 100 years it's been sitting around, okay? It's even become one of those rare books that are, you know, almost out of publication. It's very difficult it was until Mr. Crosby got some things turned around, that you could find a true copy of the Secret Doctrine. It is now back in publication. This is one that is camera copy that's here, so that at least we could have some ideas that we could build on. And we have examples of scientists who have used the secret, obviously used information from the Secret Doctrine to become Nobel scientists. And a man of the century last year was obviously tuned in with what's in the Secret Doctrine. There's a tremendous amount of information in just this one book of 1,100 pages or something like that. That's been around for over 100 years, that we still have the opportunity to make our own and bring out aspects of it to help humanity. Pass the mic, please. Leave it. Yeah.
My question is, what do you think, who creates karma? What in us, what level of us creates karma on the earth? So when, as I understand, the soul comes to our matter, it knows more than matter. But is it imperfect? Why it cannot rule the matter, and we create this disharmony and this unfortunate karma?
Well,
who creates karma in us? Is that the question?
I think I got the
What
gist
level?
of your
Yes,
question,
what
if you can keep me on
out of
track.
this, yes, out of our 7 levels, and the highest levels are the most perfect levels, as I understand. But what level, all the levels create karma, and what kind of karma, and why the highest level cannot rule in many people this low levels?
Well,
you can.
starting with the highest level, if you will, that highest perfect level of perfection, which we're all out of the one. Okay, coming down into matter, and we all have to take this trip. We're pilgrims running through this trip. Okay, we're all at different points in that process. And we are operating sometimes out of ignorance, and we do these things, etc., maybe with the best intention. If we do it with the best intention, it's not as bad as the worst. I know I'm not answering all of your questions, so just keep me to it until I do. As we're moving down through into matter, we have so much static going on around us. I mean, we have all levels of development of humans. We have humans running around us that said they're mindless beings, if you will. We have from that level up to the highest level, all intermixed together with everything else in the animal world and material world, and so forth, until it's very easy to lose sight. And we did illustrate what we did as Atlanteans. We lost sight of the third eye during that process. That's thousands of years ago. So why? It's because it was our own doings. We didn't act appropriately in developing. Now, why do we have to go through this process? The student doesn't know, except for repeating some of the words that he's read. Because he hasn't been through all this process, I guess, and can't tell you from personal experience what's going on there. But he can tell you that intuitively, every now and then, he knows he's supposed to do one thing, but he winds up doing something else.
All the time.
Yes, all the time.
But this,
give Marina the
Jai, I
microphone.
wanted to ask you also, what do you think?
Ask everyone.
This highest part of us, is it the same in every person, or it's different? So it's because I think it's different level of consciousness. Even the highest part comes with a different level. That's why when we come here, we are different. So
Well, the highest, I think, is the same. That's the one. But we're all in our different
so
paths.
we are at the
You guys
highest part.
mentioned the man.
We are perfect, or not?
Yes.
What we develop,
The highest part, we're perfect.
what
The
is
highest part,
what is
everybody-
an
yeah, we're all perfect.
evolution
We're all
on this spiral? What is an evolution? All 7 parts. So at the end, this highest part is evolving as well.
Involved.
Evolves.
All evolves. Actually, we are all.
So the
If we
universe
think
is
about 7
evolving.
different parts, then we have 7 different opportunities to learn. They're all important parts of us, and they're all here to teach us a lesson, to get us back to the correct way of thinking. Now we have 2 people who are just really trying to get the mic. So
Yes.
Veer and them 2, John.
I think I'd like to
Give-
address.
Get you.
I would like to address the student's ultimate question, I think. And I think the question is if we come down from perfection, then why can't the highest part of our being not be corrupted by matter? Is that fair? And, well,
Why can't it rule over
yes.
lower
No,
parts?
no, exactly.
Why
That's
can't it rule
let's
over
say-
the lower parts?
Yeah, why
It can.
Yeah, I mean,
It's capable.
Well, the thing is that in terms of the involution, all right, it is not going to do that because it's purity coming into impurity. The energy level dissipates as the purity comes down from the highest part of our being. That is no longer. That's what evolves, or that's what begins to evolve in the cycle.
Closer together.
That's what begins to come up in the cycle. The ascendancy is when the ego comes into matter, gets corrupted by matter through the density of energy, and that causes an impurity that only begins to develop again when you come through and go up the ascending arc. That's when the purity survives, and it is because of the purity that it does survive and comes through the matter back up to purity again.
Okay, we have another student here that has something to say about that.
For lack of a better term.
I believe the question was, why can't the higher aspect control and rule the lower aspect? And the speaker said that our highest karma was made in the Atlantean days, that through evolutionary process we descend into matter and we develop senses that enable us to get information from the world we live in, which is the natural process of evolution. What was not natural, or what was unnatural, was that even though we were very spiritual, and the spiritual element the third eye, the pineal gland, was functional, we ignored all our spiritual capabilities and immerse ourselves into matter by misusing our powers. We are not 7 constituent parts. We are an entity, a human being with all those levels of consciousness, but you are an entity. You walk in this physical universe as an individual. You have all those levels, but they are all synthesized into a whole. You work through them all. Every night when you go to sleep, you go through the astral, the mental, the psychic, finally ending in the turiya, which is the highest spiritual level of consciousness. So the student said, we communicate with the gods. We're in that world at night. That is true. So to answer your question, why the highest cannot control the lowest is, it is not of this world. It is not of substance. It's of spirit. And you have to invite that higher self. How do you invite it? Devotion to the interests of others, enlightened unselfishness. You have to invite that higher self to come in, because the higher mind is not functional in the generality of humanity at this. What is functional in us? The intellectual mind, the lower mind. It works through its brain and controls the lower aspects of the human economy. And it assumes the role of being the sole ruler, does not allow the other, because it is co-joined to what principle? Kama manas. Until that element is changed into buddhi manas, that higher cannot rule the lower.
Okay. Good kind. Right and unselfishness. We heard that again. And Sandra, and then
I'll try to take another take on this, sort of building on what I already said. In very practical terms, how I understand this. There is a lower mind, there is a higher mind, and the question is that why higher mind not controlling lower mind, and why we're not sort of rising out of the lower mind. What was already mentioned, that the lower mind exists on the state of material on a very lower level. Higher mind is from a different world, and it seems that there is a beginning of from individual state to a collective, of creation of a collective illusion. And once the collective illusion created, your lower mind exists on that level, so it picks up collective illusion, whatever that collective misbelief is. But the higher mind, in my view, is constantly overriding lower mind. And when it's overriding lower mind, this is when we feel that what's in psychology called cognitive dissonance, a feeling of extreme discomfort, that something is wrong. We don't know what is wrong, but something extremely wrong. Those feelings sometimes translate in feeling of shame, guilt, dissatisfaction, and happiness. But all that means is that higher mind overriding lower and sending signals that we are part of the collective illusion, we need to get out. So once we start picking up on the signals of the higher mind, we're actually working with the higher mind to override and rise above that.
So that higher mind is not telling us what to do, but it sure tells us when we're not
Yes,
to
there
do.
is some mismatch, and we feel this extreme discomfort when there is mismatch, and it's our job to
Exactly.
get out of it.
Okay. Was Veer next?
Yeah,
Pull it closer to you. Veer.
I think that the altruism and charity and benevolence, beneficence, and all of that is part of a purification process.
Sure.
And I think that it really is inevitable. I don't think the Atlanteans made a big mistake. That had they done something else, something would have been different. I think that's what was meant to happen. Okay, the um, the fall, from. I mean, if you look at that diagram, okay, what this diagram says essentially is that man, for lack of a better term, spirit came into matter,
Right?
descended into matter.
Right?
Okay, through that process, spirit and matter, although coexistence, would have a different perspective. And when when that happened, that's when the mistakes that we say occurred in the Atlantean ages occurred. But that is inevitable because the spirit into matter, okay, it was not of choice, it is of circumstance. It is the process of involution to the process of the process of involution of the spirit and the physical evolution of man. Because the involution of spirit is coexistent with the physical evolution of man. And it's when the physical evolution of man gets to a point, a zenith point, a point of perfection, that the spirit in man ascends through the matter, all right, back to the spirit.
Okay, let's put it this way too. Speaking in just in the terms that we see every day, Congress gets a law passed, right? And the law looks real good. You pass it out, and it turns to be very convoluted when you put it into practice. How often does that happen? I don't know what's in the mind of the deity at that highest level, and I don't think, but we can learn a lot about what's in that mind simply by observing what's happening on the physical plane. So what we are having here is that we have control over our destiny. There's no question about it, and there's no mind about it. Yes, we're going through these cycles, but how we get through these cycles is critical. And the critical part is developing our own sense, because the humans are really what nature is all about, our development for the development of nature. So yes, I mean, you can say predestination and inevitability and all that stuff, but we guide this process. That's why it's so important to understand that. We have an important role in this process, and we don't frequently understand that. I heard a lot of what you said. I don't know that we counteracted anything you said or disputed anything you said, but there we go. And did we have one more comment or two more comments? Sandra,
Yeah.
Marina, and then Tunjai.
Oh.
And
What Vera said, so in Atlantis, I think we had choice, and those people who lived there, we did different choices. Some wanted to bomb other countries and steal from other people, saying to Sandra that some people want too much. That's why other people think scarcity, that they. This is the other part of what you were saying, that it's not only these groups get together because these groups who want to distribute, because it's injustice that a small group of people, especially now in Russia, it's so obvious, 3% of people, new oligarchs, they get 95% of all the wealth of Russia. So if you say that the rest of these 5% should sit still and say, oh, we are in abundance, and these oligarchs, they're so good people, they're full of light, it would be, I think, not in harmony with how nature should work. And by the way, Master Moria said that wealthy countries, in last century, he said, will die because of this love of several groups for luxury. We shouldn't be in luxury because it's against the law of nature. But what I want to say about this law of karma, so even in Atlantis, there were different groups of people with different consciousness, so some could do another choice. So even when we are in this, I agree with what you are saying, that when we are in spirit and then we go to meta, we are corrupted, because meta is, I think we come to as a spirit to change, to enlighten the meta. This is our, I think,
Our highest consciousness is never corrupted.
no, not higher consciousness, but what we are doing,
What we're doing,
like our light becomes dimmed.
we lie to ourselves so much that we believe what we're doing is
But
right.
still, in Atlantis even, there were different levels of consciousness, and some people didn't want to participate in this bombing and stealing and killing other people. So, and my question still is, why people are different? Why, if at the highest level we are the same, why when we come to this plane, why we develop different consciousness? What is
Well, we all go through these cycles, but we all have different experiences at different times. So, no two people are the same for that reason.
so we evolve with different speed.
Yeah, like for
Okay.
example, Atlantean times, that third eye was there. So they knowingly did stuff, because the spiritual eye was there.
Yes,
Okay? There was a time, because that spiritual eye was there, there's stories that that the Atlanteans could row, make boats move without oars. They could make planes fly simply through their own will and through the energy that they passed through them. So in the process of doing these things, I'm superior to the rest, and I can get rid of this nation, or whatever they did back then, and the story is exactly what they did. And they denied the spiritual wisdom side of themselves, a higher conscience, if you will. And then we got into this mess we're in now. So we got to get back out of it. And Vera has one more, and then Tunja, I think, maybe has the last word.
I don't want us to misunderstand each other because of the words that we use.
Well, we do it all the time.
Because I'm listening to you, and essentially we're saying the same thing. And when I use the word corrupt, I'm not saying that the spirit is ever corrupted in and of itself. Don't misunderstand me. But when the spirit comes into matter, the only way the third eye could become less active is that the energy levels.
No.
Before you, all right, let me
Let
finish
Vera
my point.
finish, and then you get a chance.
The energy levels, okay, on a densification of matter. When Atlanteans had certain powers that they could move things without touching them, or whatever those powers were, okay, that's when they were closer and purer in spirit. Was it not? Was it not? I mean, that's when because they had come into, they were so much spirit.
Because of their spiritual powers, all different.
Because their spiritual powers,
cut sundown, they could do these
because
things.
their spiritual powers were because they were spirit. It's not because they were spiritual powers. They were spirit, and that spirit had powers. Okay, and when the third eye could close down, that would have to. The only thing that could explain that is when that spiritual power, in terms of its energy level, dissipates. And when that could, and through the densification of matter, the ethereal into a gross substance of matter begins to occur, that spirit, although still pure in physical manifestation, all right, will be impure. No. Otherwise, you can't explain good and evil. You can't explain why, if our higher minds are so magnificently powerful, overcoming matter all the way through, then why do we have evil?
Can I-
Why would evil?
Can I help cut this short a little bit?
Yes,
Because the first student, I think,
absolutely.
the first speaker answered that question. When she said that with respect to the spirit, okay, and she said that has to be invited in. When we're down here in matter, we forget to invite in that spirit. And we will not raise ourselves up until we learn to invite that in and heed the spirit. I think that might partially help, but I don't know what the student here had in mind. She had a comment, and we're running out of time, so we'll let her have a comment, and then we can continue to have discussions if we wish to after her comment.
Thank you.
It is extremely important, truly, to understand the philosophy. And this student does not claim to understand all of it, but just bits of it. First, a spirit is always a spirit. It never changes. But when it comes into materiality, there's an immersion from homogeneity to heterogeneity. And as we immerse more and more, and we went through all of the levels of immersion in the previous talk last week, we read it from the Secret Doctrine, that we were ethera astral, ethera this, ethera that. And when we come into materiality, all our senses that are developing on the physical level is in conjunction with the spiritual aspect of us. But in the Atlantean period, even though we were spiritually active and could make better choices, we chose to abuse our powers, destroy lands, peoples, and misuse our spiritual powers. Pineal gland was active. We had all our spiritual powers. And what was it that they were doing? What were we doing? We were using sidereal powers, the energy that comes from the sun, and channeling it through for abuse and destruction. That is misuse of powers. Today, we are still doing the misuse, but that the spiritual eye,
the misuse is what.
a spirit cannot be
We
corrupted.
have to think
The
of spirit and
is
matter
not
is
corrupted.
on the same
How
spectrum.
do you get from perfection to imperfection?
Your spirit aspect is still
We-
We
perfect.
have to think about
We
can I
ate
just,
the apple.
the
There has to be. If we start from a realm of homogeneity, okay, you're dealing from a realm of homogeneity. You're dealing with perfection, okay. When you deal with heterogeneity, you're having a derivative of perfection, okay. You no longer have perfection.
Yes,
in its
you do if you
purest- May I
exercise
finish
it.
my statement? Is you have no longer have perfection in its purest form. Its highest energy level is dissipated when you go into heterogeneity.
No,
you don't
no.
have the mic back there, so we can't hear much of what you're
the,
saying. But
substance,
let's
substance
end
is
this.
I'm thinking for the
Yeah,
room.
it's pure.
Okay.
Let's
the
end this by
substance
saying
we
this.
use is also pure. We, by abusing it, we make it
I don't
impure.
Buy that. I don't buy that abuse. I don't. I
We
think,
have a choice. We have a power of choice.
I
Yeah.
think that there may have been some historical, there may have been some teachings about what happened during a certain period. There was another period. The period before that was the Lemurian period. Excuse me.
That-
The period before that was
Get
the
the
Lemurian
mic if
period.
you're going to finish
And
it
at
up.
that
Now
point-
finish it up. You got to
at
finish
that
it up.
point,
You got 30 seconds.
I'm done.
Okay, you're done. One more comment that the speaker has. Spirit and matter are two places on the same spectrum, okay? But spirit is pure here. Matter is there, okay? They have to operate. They're two sides of the same coin. So with that, next week's is on the three fundamentals, which is very, very important, especially for older students of theosophy that think they maybe understand stuff, and also for new students who can get a quick glimpse of what the secret doctrine is all about. We have to have a fundamental understanding of the three fundamentals, in order to have a chance of understanding what's in the secret doctrine. So please tune in next week at this time to carry on with our conversations in theosophy. Thank you.